the things we supporters of rugby league love about this sport is its tough, uncompromising nature. Although for players it means that injury is something of an occupational hazard. Fortunately though, serious and life-changing injury is very, very rare. Our thoughts recently have been with Alex McKinnon, the NRL player who suffered a devastating neck injury while playing in Australia. We can sympathise with Alex, but our guest this week on Super League Superstars knows exactly what he's going through. Jimmy Gittins was playing for Charleston Rovers when he too suffered a neck injury that left him diagnosed quadriplegic. Now what he's done since has been nothing short of inspirational. He's used his experience to support and encourage others. As part of that, he's made a film about his experiences, and we're going to show you a snippet of it now, before the man himself talks to John Wells.
The irony of it was that I was subbing, we'd kicked off and one of the lads got injured, he split his eye, and they called me onto the field and it was probably only after about 4 or 5 minutes. We were in zone 25 and done a play of the ball. I think I got off the first man, and like I do, you know, I just came in to get a bit warmed up. I probably always tended to run for the bigger lads just to try and get involved with the game, and unfortunately on this one I must have been in an incorrect position, and I think that's really just how unlucky it really was. That's how it all fell. There was no pain. Everything just felt like it stopped and slowed down, and I felt like I just floated down to the ground. Probably the scariest feeling I've ever had in my life, to be honest. But paralysis took place by then. I was trying to be my usual Joe self, and I was having a bit of a jest with the ambulance people and saying, you know, you've got to get me right, I'm going out tonight, and they were saying, well, you know, we don't think it'll be tonight that you're going out, but you might be surprised you have to stay in hospital for a while. I heard a little conversation by the ambulance crew, the paramedics. Said, you know, I think it's a bad one. I heard the quote C34, which at that time had no relevance to me whatsoever. But I was later to believe that obviously that's 2 bones in your neck that actually broke. I was very scared. What am I going to do? You know, this really is it. You know, how am I going to get over this?
Welcome to Super League Superstars, and to my guest this week, Jimmy Gittins. Jimmy, welcome to the programme.
Hi, Tom.
And we join you at a watershed moment in your life, as we saw from the video there. Before we get any more into that, let's talk a little bit about Jimmy before the injury and what type of person you are. Were you love for rugby league? What type of player were you? What position did you play?
Well, to be honest, I played all over the place. I mean, I established myself as a fullback, but one of my old amateur clubs, I originally started at Stanley Rangers, and my old coach down there, Terry Crook, used to say to me, Jimmy, I never know where to play you, but I know that you've got to be in the side. So that sort of like set the tone for me as a player, I think.
So you were an amateur player at the time of your injury. You were playing for Charleston, but you were a professional for some time as well. Yeah,
I mean, I was lucky. You know, I'd had some good years professionally. You know, when I was 16, I started at Castleford. Played a season in their A team there, and then I was signed from Dewsbury Rams. And I went on loan after that to Wakefield and to Hunslet, and I was lucky enough to have a season in Australia. And then it was just it seemed a natural thing to go back into the amateur game. I played quite a bit for Thornhill Trojans in Dewsbury, and it was always good to get back with the old lads that I played with within the game, you know, within the professional game. And this opportunity came to play for Charleston Rovers. My brother were there, some of the old players were there. It just seemed the right thing to do.
How did Thornhill compare to Byron Bay?
Well,
the same.
If you're playing for Thornhill, it's fine. I wouldn't want to be playing against Thornhill.
So we come back to 2002, and you're 28 years of age. You're playing for Charleston with your mates, and then that happens. In that moment, thoughts going through your head. How did you feel physically?
As you know, John, when you're playing normally, if you have an injury, there's either something stuck out, something broken, there's something bleeding. There's an area of pain. In this circumstances, there was nothing. The tackle itself, there was nothing malicious. There was nothing untoward about it. It was something I'd done thousands and thousands of times before. Obviously, just my positional. Something was wrong. Something wasn't right, and it all just went really quiet and really surreal and calm. And I felt like I floated down to the ground, but clearly I didn't. I got put down to the ground. But when I was on the ground, I remember saying to one of my teammates, you know, am I laid on my arms? And he said, no mate, they're at side of you. And I could look down, I could see down, I couldn't move anything from my neck down, but I could see my arms and my legs and my feet, but I just couldn't move anything. And I think at that point there it was scary, and it hit me, and I don't think you can put into words how I felt, to be honest. You know, it was just a shock, total shock.
So in the immediate aftermath then, what happened?
Well, from the game itself, I was taken by ambulance to Leeds General Infirmary, and I spent probably about 10 days there. They did an operation and a fixation on my neck, where they put a little plate over my 2 broken bones. I don't remember a lot of it, to be honest. I think there was a lot of morphine and different drugs and things involved there. But it came to the point where I was getting transferred to Wakefield to Pinderfield spinal injuries. And the realisation, I think, set in. There was some dark times at Leeds, and there were some darker times to follow at Wakefield, to be honest.
So what point did they start to pass the information across that this was something very serious?
At Leeds, it didn't seem to be talked about. I didn't have a lot of dealings with the surgeons and doctors. When I got to Wakefield, it was far more personal. I'd only been there a few days, and they basically come and sat around my bed and said I wouldn't sit up, walk, feed myself, look after myself, and it were hard to take. Even now, you know, I'm 11 years on, and it's still, I just think about that moment when he sat down and told me these things. This was a guy trying to tell me how my life was going to be so different. A life that I didn't recognise, and I certainly didn't want it.
And what was your immediate reaction then? I think we spoke off camera, and we'll not swear or make any gestures, but that must have been you angry.
I was very angry, and I think, to be honest, my ignorant self basically turned around to me and said, "I'll walk out of here," and he gave me quite a little snigger, and I think he touched me on my cheek and said, "Well, yeah, I hope so too, son," you know. But that was my goal, you know. That was the thing I set to do. And I was hell bent on going to do it.
And you did do it?
Yeah, 9 months later I managed to get on my sticks and make my way out of the hospital and get into my car and drive myself home. And it literally very nearly finished me off.
So the nature of the injury, obviously it's very serious, and it's very complete, and it's very final. But it isn't just you that's affected, is it? I mean, it's your family, your friends, girlfriends, you know, extended family. How did you cope knowing that they were going through what they were going through?
I think initially you don't realise what your family are going through. You're sat in this bed and you're in this bubble. It's all about you, you know, everything's surrounded by you. And I guess all my family and my friends would come and see me, and they'd hold back their feelings and emotions to come and try and keep me cheerful. And I guess when they walk back out of that corridor there, they'd have their time and they'd have their emotions. And like I said, for myself, you know, I didn't see it until probably some time after being discharged from hospital and getting home, and realising the pain that certainly like my mum and dad and my brother, you know, your immediate family, I mean, they went through hell. You know, it's not just yourself going through it, it really is your family and your friends and everybody around you that's involved in it. Because we haven't been here before, there's no book, there's no script of how it should be, there's nothing set in stone. It's literally, you live it a day by day. And
there was no benevolent fund at that point either, was there?
No, there wasn't a lot. You know, the day I got discharged from hospital, you literally went back into this open world that I didn't even recognise. You know, the things that I used to do, I couldn't do. The things that I was surrounded by, it weren't the same things. You know, I was living back at my mum and dad's. You know, by this time, by the time I left hospital, I was 29 years old, and I was back living at my mum and dad's. And life was very, very very small. You know, I was downstairs in an extension because that's how they made things movable for me. And, you know, my life was very different, very, very different.
How fierce was that drive for independence once again?
For me, to get my independence back was the one thing that I had to have. I don't think I could have carried on living it had I not got my independence back. You know, I mean, there's people that have the similar injury to me, and the outcome of it is a lot worse than mine. And, you know, I stress that I'm quite a lucky bloke, I think. You know, I've worked hard for it, but I've also had some good luck. I think lady luck plays a big part in this. And I've had the peer pressure and the support, not peer pressure, support, from family and friends who, when I've gone down, they've picked me back up. And I think I'm very, very lucky to have that. You know, I think there's people out there that don't have that. And that's a shame. You know, it really is a crying shame.
Yeah, I read a piece, I think Jamie Jones-Buchanan did a piece with Matt King last year. Another young man who suffered a very serious injury, and he was saying that it was the realisation that came months and even probably years after what he mentioned his brother specifically. His younger brother lost Matt, his older brother, for a year, and he felt incredibly guilty about that, Brandon.
I can imagine. I mean, I know Matt personally, through the Benevolent Fund. And I think, you know, how Matt deals with things and how he looks at life and sees life is just phenomenal. You know, it's fantastic, really. Yeah, I mean, my family, certainly my brother, I can emphasise with that. My brother, he was my little brother, and I was always the big brother, and now it came when I needed my brother more than anything, my little brother, and he stepped up to Mark. You know, he became my rock.
And that support from your brother and from your family must have been incredibly important, but so was rehab and rehabilitation, a big part of any injury of this nature. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more of that side of Jimmy's story.